So almost immediately on the first day, Rishi Sunak has had no choice but to completely backtrack on all of his pledges. And despite all this, all of his incredibly infantile, ridiculous, petty, childish supporters from the Telegraph, the Mail, the Express, they're all pointing the finger at Starmer because they're claiming Starmer wouldn't face Sunak in 6 TV debates. Now, I just want to make this point absolutely clear, ladies and gentlemen, because I know fine well that this is going to sound like nothing you've ever heard before, but it's this sort of thing that hopefully, more than anything, people will begin to realise that actually the press have actually got no right whatsoever to start bullying other people in parties like these. If you want to actually take on somebody intellectually, you pose them with facts, you pose them with figures, you do things that people can absolutely understand, because there's a lot of very, very biased reaction towards the Conservative Party at the moment in the press. Look no further than the front of the Daily Telegraph, claiming that Starmer wouldn't face Sir Kier Starmer, face Rishi Sunak, despite the fact that Starmer hasn't actually made his decision at this point. Meanwhile, they also left an article at the very top of the Telegraph saying that the Labour front bench is the dullest he has ever seen. However, and this is literally something my dad said to me 2 days ago, sometimes actually maybe having dull politicians is not the worst thing you can imagine, because they're not embroiled and they're not embezzled by the idea of looking good. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I said this before, and I constantly mention Rishi Sunak's announcement and how ridiculous he looked standing there for 10 minutes whilst he was getting drenched when, you know, he couldn't have had the sense to bring out an umbrella. Is that who would you be more impressed by? Somebody who knew what they were doing and they opposed it intellectually and they didn't try to flash and, you know, try and pull the wool over your eyes? Or would you be going after someone like Rishi Sunak, who is all mouth and no trousers? And probably needs to change his trousers and that, because to be honest, he'd be shit scared if people like me had made their voices louder and a lot more people heard of what I had to say about them, then I reckon they would be running shit scared too. Because to be honest, I would rather put my faith into somebody who was dull but knew exactly what they were doing, and just because they're up to the Daily Telegraph standards of, you know, being entertaining. But then again, I would imagine that the Daily Telegraph's idea of entertaining would be embroiled in things like the stupid Strictly Geo scandal, because, you know, there's nothing else going on in this country right now that needs more attention and stuff like that. Meanwhile, there's also, again, the Mail calling Starmer spineless, and, well, it's just going to be what you're going to hear this over and over and over again. Starmer is spineless. Labour have no plan. Rishi Sunak is getting everything off the ground, despite the fact that he's had to say no to all of his pledges on the very first day of his campaign. So, not a good start. Because I don't know immediately what you're going to be saying to yourselves is that, of course, well, if it sounds like that, then who in their right mind is actually going to vote Sir Tory? Who in that mind is... Forget Starmer for a second, and I've said this before, like, for at least 3 years now. The mantra, the feeling of the moment, is not to be pro-Labour, but to be anti-Tory. People may not like Sir Kier Starmer for whatever reason, but are you really trying to tell me that your confidence lies in Sunak? You think Sunak is going to be in your corner by the time you've backed him? Are you telling me that's what's really going to happen? And while we're on the subject, I just want to say right now is that what I said before, it's still not good enough. People need to be pro-Labour and to be anti-Tory. People need to back Labour in sincerity, not because they are the only way of getting rid of this government. So I don't know whether it's just wishful thinking. I don't know whether it's just because it's tactical voting, but I'm still voting for Labour no matter what happens, because a sense of normality needs to return to this country. A normality, a feeling that actually power should be delivered to the proletariat, to the working classes, not to unelected technocrats like Liz Truss, or to people who are just flown in like Boris Johnson or Nigel Farage or Lee Anderson or any one of those absolutely backless, feckless, law-breaking bullshitters on GB News. You heard me right, I can't fucking stand GB News or the Reform Party as much as anybody else. So, again, if you're a supporter of the Reform Party, you know what? Bring it on. Because I've said this before and I'll say it again. At the end of the day, it's only going to be through people like me are going to give the Reform Party the vote. You're going to have to try and convince me that the Reform Party is the way it's got to be. In the same way for Conservatives, they've got to somehow convince me as well that I've got to vote for them. Because they're going to have to rely on my vote as much as they're going to rely on yours. So make your voice heard. And I've unveiled this before, but I have a 10-set rule when it comes to politics. And number 2 on the list is a very simple one, but one that I would strongly encourage people to openly voice. And that is, you have got to have your say. Powerful and effective. Thank you.